The biting wind howled like a banshee through the skeletal branches of the ancient banyan trees lining the desolate road. It was past midnight, the moon a sliver of bone in the inky sky, casting long, dancing shadows that writhed like restless spirits. Veer, a young architect with a penchant for the paranormal and a healthy dose of skepticism, gripped the steering wheel of his Jeep, knuckles white. He was miles away from the nearest town, returning from a site visit to a dilapidated haveli rumored to be haunted. He'd scoffed at the local whispers, attributing the eerie tales to overactive imaginations and the haveli's undeniably unsettling ambiance. Yet, as the Jeep's headlights cut through the oppressive darkness, a prickle of unease crawled up his spine. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen presence. Suddenly, the Jeep lurched violently, throwing Veer forward against his seatbelt. The engine sputtered and died, plunging him into absolute silence, save for the mournful sigh of the wind. "Great," he muttered, switching the ignition key repeatedly to no avail. The battery was dead, miles from civilization. Under a sky that felt like a suffocating blanket, Veer was stranded. He pulled out his phone, the screen stubbornly blank. No signal, a wave of genuine fear, cold and sharp, pierced through his earlier bravado. He was truly alone. Taking a deep breath, Veer grabbed his flashlight and a small toolkit from the back seat. He had to at least try to figure out what went wrong. As he stepped out of the Jeep, the temperature seemed to drop several degrees. The shadows around him deepened, taking on grotesque shapes. He could have sworn he heard a faint whisper on the wind, a woman's soft, melancholic sigh. He dismissed it as his imagination playing tricks on him. Popping the hood, Veer peered into the engine compartment. Everything looked normal. He checked the battery connections, clean. He fiddled with a few wires, his heart pounding a nervous rhythm against his ribs. Still nothing. A twig snapped in the nearby bushes, making him jump. He swung the flashlight around, its beam catching only the swaying leaves. Just an animal, he told himself, but his voice lacked conviction. He decided to walk a bit down the road, hoping to catch a glimpse of a distant light, or maybe even get a sliver of phone signal. The road stretched endlessly before him, a ribbon of darkness swallowed by the surrounding wilderness. The silence was unnerving, punctuated only by the crunch of his boots on the gravel and the relentless whisper of the wind. He walked for what felt like an eternity, his hope dwindling with each step. Just as despair began to set in, he saw it. A faint light flickered in the distance, a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. Relief washed over him, so potent it almost made his knees buckle. As he drew closer, the light resolved itself into a small cottage, nestled amidst a grove of trees. Smoke curled gently from its chimney, painting a picture of warmth and refuge. He hurried towards it, his steps quickening with anticipation. He knocked on the wooden door, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing a woman standing in the soft glow of an oil lamp. She was strikingly beautiful, with long, dark hair that cascaded down her shoulders and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. She wore a simple white sari, and a delicate silver anklet adorned her left foot. "Namaste," Veer said, his voice hoarse. "My Jeep broke down a few miles back. I saw your light and was hoping I could use your phone to call for help." The woman smiled, a serene and gentle expression that somehow didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course," she said, her voice like the tinkling of wind chimes. "Please, come in. It's a cold night." Veer stepped inside, feeling an immediate sense of warmth and comfort. The cottage was small but cozy, with walls lined with old photographs and shelves filled with books. The air was fragrant with the scent of burning sandalwood. "My name is Veer," he said. "I am Chandramukhi," she replied softly. "Please sit. I will make you some tea." As Chandramukhi moved gracefully around the small kitchen, Veer's gaze fell upon one of the photographs on the wall. It was a black and white picture of a young woman who bore an uncanny resemblance to Chandramukhi, but her eyes held a vibrant joy that was absent in the woman before him. The photograph looked old, perhaps decades old. "This is a lovely picture," Veer said, picking it up for a closer look. "Is this you?" A shadow flickered across Chandramukhi's face. "That was me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "A long time ago." She placed a steaming cup of tea in front of him. The aroma was intoxicating, a blend of spices he couldn't quite identify. He took a sip, and the warmth spread through him, chasing away the lingering chill. As they talked, Veer found himself drawn to Chandramukhi's quiet grace and her melancholic beauty. She spoke of poetry and art, of the beauty of the night and the secrets held within the ancient forests. There was an ethereal quality about her, as if she belonged to another time, another realm. He asked if he could use her phone, and she smiled sadly. "A phone? What is that?" she asked, her eyes wide with innocent confusion. Veer frowned. Surely, even in this remote place, people had phones. He chalked it up to her being reclusive. "Is there a village nearby?" he asked. "Somewhere I can get help with my jeep?" Chandramukhi shook her head. "There is nothing for miles," she said. "But don't worry. You can stay here for the night. Rest, and in the morning, perhaps the jeep will be fine." He felt a pang of unease at her words. It sounded less like an offer and more like a statement. But he was tired and had no other options. "Thank you," he said. Chandramukhi showed him to a small room with a simple bed and a window overlooking the dark woods. He lay down, but sleep eluded him. The silence of the cottage was broken only by the rhythmic ticking of an old grandfather clock in the hallway and the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards. He couldn't shake off the feeling that something was not quite right. Chandramukhi's beauty was captivating, but there was a sadness in her eyes that was deeply unsettling. Her knowledge of poetry and art seemed vast, yet she didn't know what a phone was. And the photograph, the vibrant woman in the picture, and the melancholic woman who offered him tea seemed like two different people. As the night deepened, the atmosphere in the cottage grew heavier. Veer felt a growing sense of dread, an instinct screaming at him that he was in danger. He got out of bed and cautiously opened the door. The hallway was dimly lit by the flickering oil lamp. He walked towards the living room, drawn by an inexplicable curiosity. He noticed that the photograph of the young woman was now on the table, facing him. He picked it up again, studying the joyful smile, the sparkling eyes. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the oil lamp and plunging him into darkness. He gasped, his heart leaping into his throat. A low, mournful sob echoed through the cottage, closer now, laced with an unbearable sorrow. "Who's there?" Veer stammered, his voice trembling. A faint, ethereal glow emerged from the room's corner. Slowly, a figure began to take shape. It was the woman from the photograph, but now her face was twisted in anguish, her eyes brimming with an unspeakable pain. Her white sari appeared to shimmer in the darkness, and her long hair drifted around her like a dark cloud. Veer recoiled, his mind spinning in terror. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Yet, the icy cold that filled the air, the palpable sense of grief that weighed heavily in the room, felt terrifyingly real. The spectral figure drifted towards him, her silent sobs growing louder, more heart-wrenching. Her eyes, once full of joy, now held a desperate plea, a silent scream of agony. She extended a translucent hand towards him, and Veer instinctively flinched. As her hand passed through him, a wave of icy cold washed over him, and a flood of images overwhelmed his mind. He saw a young woman, vibrant with life and laughter, deeply in love. He saw a tragic accident, a sudden end to a vibrant existence. He felt the crushing grief of a soul torn from its beloved. Then the images shifted. He saw the same woman, now a spectral figure, wandering through the cottage, her sorrow an eternal echo in the empty rooms. He understood. Chandramukhi was not merely a reclusive woman. She was a spirit, trapped between worlds, her heart forever broken. The spectral Chandramukhi floated closer, her eyes fixed on him with an intense longing. He could feel her sorrow, her desperate yearning for peace. He wanted to help her, but he was paralyzed by fear, trapped in the terrifying reality of a haunted cottage in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly he remembered something Chandramukhi had said earlier, something about the beauty of the night and the secrets held within the ancient forests. He thought of the banyan trees lining the road, their ancient roots reaching deep into the earth. A desperate yet hopeful idea sparked in his mind. He had read somewhere that spirits tethered to a place could sometimes find release through a connection to the natural world, to the ancient energies of the land. "The banyan trees," he whispered, his voice trembling. Were you connected to the trees?" The spectral figure seemed to react to his words. Her sorrowful gaze intensified, and she floated towards the window, her translucent hand reaching out towards the dark silhouette of the trees against the moonlit sky. Veer, his fear momentarily eclipsed by a sudden wave of empathy, trailed after her. His gaze swept over the age-old trees, their twisted branches stretching skyward like arms raised in supplication. He could almost sense the ancient power radiating from them, a quiet thrum that resonated in the still night air. "Your love, was it beneath those trees?" he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. The spectral Chandramukhi offered a slow nod, her eyes brimming with a deep sorrow. An image flickered through Veer's mind. A youthful couple, their laughter and whispered secrets shared under the vast canopy of a banyan tree, their affection as profound and lasting as the roots anchoring the tree to the earth. Understanding dawned upon him. Her spirit was bound to this place, to the memory of her love, perhaps even to the very essence of those ancient trees. Drawing a deep breath, Veer stepped out of the cottage, the chill night air nipping at his skin. He made his way towards the nearest banyan tree, its massive trunk looming before him like a silent sentinel. He reached out and placed his hand on its rough bark, feeling the ancient energy pulse beneath his fingertips. "Chandramukhi," he called out, his voice echoing in the stillness. "Your love, it's still here, in these trees, in this land. You are not forgotten." As he spoke, a soft, ethereal glow enveloped the banyan tree. The spectral form of Chandramukhi drifted towards it, her sorrowful expression slowly melting into one of serene peace. The air around them seemed to shimmer, and the mournful sobs faded away, replaced by a gentle whisper on the breeze, a sigh of release. The glow intensified, bathing the surroundings in an otherworldly light. Veer closed his eyes, a profound sense of peace washing over him. When he opened them again, the spectral figure had vanished. The cottage stood silent in the moonlight, the oppressive atmosphere gone. He felt a lightness in the air, a sense of completion that was almost tangible. He looked at the banyan tree, its ancient branches now seeming to reach towards the heavens with a renewed vitality. He walked back to his jeep, half expecting it to still be lifeless. But as he inserted the key and turned the ignition, the engine roared to life. He stared in disbelief. The jeep was functioning perfectly. He drove away from the cottage, glancing back one last time. It stood bathed in the soft moonlight, no longer menacing but serene, a silent testament to a love that had finally found peace. As he drove, a thought struck him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. To his astonishment, it had a full signal. He looked at the screen, a single new notification blinking, a video message from an unknown sender. Curiosity piqued, he pulled over to the side of the road and opened the video. It showed a young woman, her face radiant with joy, laughing as she sat beneath a large banyan tree, her head resting on the shoulder of a young man whose face was just out of frame. The woman looked exactly like the vibrant figure in the old photograph. Suddenly, the woman in the video turned her gaze directly towards the camera, her eyes locking with Veer's. Her joyful expression softened into a gentle smile, and she mouthed a single word, her voice inaudible but her lips clear. "Thank you." The video ended. Veer sat in stunned silence, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. He had witnessed something extraordinary, something that defied logic and explanation. He had stumbled upon a haunting, a tragic love story, and somehow he had played a part in its resolution. He knew he would never forget his midnight ride and the Chandramukhi spirit. He had gone out a skeptic and returned with a profound understanding of the unseen world, a world where love and sorrow could linger beyond the veil of death, and where even the most tragic of tales could find a miracle ending.